Is there a part of this new building that the athletes have sort of complimented you on the most, or you've heard the most sort of positive feedback about?
I think the locker room, big time props on that. The sports medicine room, those are the two that really, really have struck home with the players.
John Lally mentioned down there, right, that you guys fundraised for this in the middle of sort of the onset of NIL.
Right.
And it was sort of probably a two-pronged war in terms of fundraising. Does having this all done put you in any different positioning moving forward?
It does, Chris, a little bit. We can pivot a little bit more, and we still want to, there's still future phases of the Lally complex we want to accomplish, but the immediate priority right now is NIL related. So having this done allows us to refocus a little bit.
What do you sort of want to do in the future that's not done now?
I think the next area that I really want to do is upgrade our Olympic sports, and we've got plans. There's some of the space that football vacated. We're going to refresh over the summer and turn over Olympic sports, which would be a significant upgrade. But there's some locker room complexes for some of the Olympic sports that long term we want to totally redo.
How have you just seen alumni support in the last 16 months even, just come behind Fran and really dig into this program?
Well, I think Fran is so genuine and authentic, and just, he loves Syracuse, and he knows about the history of this program, he respects the history of this program, and I think he's been able to galvanize. He connects with people, and I think there's no doubt it's impacted our donor base. We've increased our donor base, and we're going to need to continue to increase it going forward.
In terms of the NIL, I know you guys care about the champion cues. How important do you think that will just be towards your efforts going forward to stay modern and ahead of the curve?
Champion cues is critical to our success, absolutely critical, and I've told people that. If you're not competitive in the NIL world, you won't have success. I believe with the coaches that we have, if we're competitive in the NIL space, we will be successful. So Champion Q's campaign, critical.
I know you had like a $50 million goal for that. Just
right.
How's that progress going, and how attainable do you think it is to get there?
We're off to a good start. It's ambitious, but we should set ambitious goals. And I've told the staff internally, I said, I want to see us blow by that 50 million number. So the internal goal is even more ambitious.
John, you guys are playing the spring game tonight. For some guys, it could be, depending on the house settlement, it could be their last time in a Syracuse uniform. What do you want to see with roster limits moving forward? How do you want that resolved?
I think we've reached agreement. The Power Four reached agreement on it as part of the settlement. Football would be at 105, and I would like to see that implemented. And if you implement it, Chris, over a period of time for all the sports, all the roster limits for all the sports, if we need to adjust or tweak it 2 or 3 years in, we can do that. But let's deploy what we've agreed to, right? And let's live it for a couple of years and see how it impacts.
Why do you want them, or why are they necessary for colleges?
I just think if it's not there, I can load up my roster. I can have 145 kids, right? I'm just kind of hurting talent and that type of thing. So I just think it's important from an equity standpoint, important from a competitive standpoint. It's important from a Title IX participation standpoint as well. And it's one of the things that we want to do, because if you get into roster creep, it's not good.
Do you like the idea of grandfathering in so that the guys that are on the team now get to finish their careers?
Yeah, I want to learn more about that. I understand the concept, but it's kind of like the COVID year. We're finally getting to the end of the additional COVID year. Part of the impact, if you grandfather kids too, is the impact it has on high school recruiting, right? Look at the portal and how the portal has impacted high school recruiting in basketball. I think in particular even more so than football. So I think you've got to be really careful, because when you make a decision on one specific element, there's going to be a downstream effect as well, and you need to consider the whole, just not that individual component.
I guess I'm thinking more football, right? But I'm thinking your 105th guy in football, if he's a walk-on, isn't
right.
stopping you from offering a scholarship to a scholarship
right.
player. But you think even that it impacts high school recruiting?
I think it not as much in football as it does basketball.
There's some football players that are competing at the track meet this weekend that are missing the spring game, but the track facilities and building everything here is something that you guys want to do. How do you see track being able to get maybe a throws coach and maybe start a throws program, or just get more amenities for the Olympic sports?
One of the challenges of the House settlement and where we are in the NIL world is the impact on Olympic sports, right? And we're still committed to all of our 20 sports, but it is more challenging. and it's going to be more challenging going forward. Part of that is donor support is absolutely critical. Supporting head coaches funds, where donors can support directly to the head coach of that sport, that's going to help us. I like what Fran's done in working with the track coach, because Fran likes to recruit multi-sport athletes, and that helps track in their participation in their roster numbers.
Do you see the facilities being built or even a coach being brought in when it comes to throws side of track?
We've not considered that yet.
In terms of the collectives and paying people, what kind of happens to Orange United, SU Football NIL with the settlement? If that does get settled, you can pay players directly.
SU Football NIL, they've done a great job, and Joe Burton is the founder and CEO, and PJ Alexander, both who played here, offensive linemen. SU Football NIL will definitely continue, but we won't, when we get to July, assuming the House settlement gets approved, which you all think it will, we won't need 3 NIL entities. So we'll streamline some of that, particularly with the Champion Q's campaign.
And how do you just balance sort of, the funding and paying of athletes between, if you can pay them and the collectives? Like, how do you kind of balance that football, especially?
There's got to be really good coordination, right, between our department, the people who's overseeing NIL for me and for our department, working with the collectives.
Why is it so important for you to streamline them, and how can that,
I think part of it is you get into, it makes it easier for donors, right? Because I think one of the concerns with collectives is for the donors, well, I'm giving this collective, what is this organization, et cetera, that type of thing. Is it tax exempt? Is it not tax exempt? Most of the collectives are not tax exempt. Champion Q's makes it really easy for our donors. You're giving to Syracuse Athletics, Syracuse University, you get your tax donation. So I think the simpler we can make it for our donors, the better. Because one of the things I stress all the time to our advancement staff, our donors are really busy people. These are highly successful business people. So we've got to make it as efficient and as easy for them as we can.
When factoring all that together, where does your NIL kind of sit in terms of the ACC when stacking against other teams?
We've made progress. We're not where we want to be yet, to be honest with you, but we've made progress with football and with basketball as well. We've had some people step up with basketball recently, which has helped us with the portal. We need more corporate support, locally and regionally. It can't be just individual donors. We need more corporate support. And the impact that Syracuse Athletics has on this community, the impact that it has economically in this community, is massive. So we need more corporate support.
And how do you get that corporate support?
After this question, can you get to the facility question before I ask a I know some of our folks want to make sure we're getting what they need for the facility and the field tonight as well.
I think for the corporates, it's meeting with the CEOs. It's meeting with the C-suite executives, sharing our vision, sharing why it's important for them to participate, for them to contribute. It benefits their business. It's going to benefit this area. It's going to benefit this community. A rising tide lifts all boats.
When you reflect on your decision to hire Coach Fran at this point, a year and a few months ago, have you seen a quantifiable impact with him in sort of rallying the community and rallying the resources?
Exactly. I think he has, and he connects with people so well. He's connected first with our alumni, and a great example of that is Dwight coming back. And this was Dwight's idea, and Dwight's really passionate. And this is more than just, okay, here's a Hall of Famer and here's a name, right? Dwight really wants to help this program, and that's because of Fran's ability to connect. He started with the alumni. He's done it with the donor base as well, and I think with the community, because you see him out in the community. You see him engaged in the community, and you see him do things on his own, right? Not scheduled. He'll just show up someplace, right? And that's who he is. And I think in doing that, he's endeared himself to the community.
How do you hope this facility impacts the athletes here?
As I said in my comments, I think when they come here as freshmen, when they leave here as seniors, we want them to develop to their full capability, academically, athletically, to grow as people. That when they leave here, they're young men that are primed to have success wherever they go next. And if they're good enough to go to the NFL, great. But most won't. So when we have them, when they're prepared to go in the business world and they're prepared to have success, that's what our objective is. And this facility will help them accomplish that.
Talk about how this facility is very modern and technologically advanced. I think someone mentioned that up at
It is, and we really put an emphasis on sports medicine with that. And John Mitchell, our director of sports medicine, can answer that more better than I can. But what we wanted to do is, particularly with a sport like football, recovery is so important. So what can we do to be best in class in recovery? What can we do to be best in class in injury prevention? What can we do in terms of nutrition? The new kitchen that we have in the cafeteria really allows us to customize to the needs of the individual players. Some players need to gain weight, some players need to lose weight. So it allows us to customize much more for the athlete. What we did in the weight room last year, the technology there where you get a readout of every single rep that the athlete does, right, in their form, et cetera, that type of thing. And those are small things, but when you add those together, that can be the difference of winning that one extra game, right, that's going to make you top 25 team, that's going to make you an ACC title contender, make you a playoff contender, and that's what we need to focus on.
John, when you look through this facility and you see that not only is it important for the alumni to give back, but you're giving back to them, putting their names in all different places, how important is it to reflect on the alumni and make sure that they're seen throughout this program?
To me, this is their program. This will always be their program. It's not Coach Fran's program. It's not my program. He has the privilege to coach it. I have the privilege to lead it. This program belongs to our players. It belongs to our alumni. It belongs to our current players. It will ultimately belong to our future players, right? So really, really important. We've had great alumni participation, in terms of donation to make this building a reality. We want them to come back. We want them to see it. We want them to be proud of what they see and the impact that they've made.
What's the thing that's kind of stuck out to you the most as you walk through and kind of marvel in the technology and the modernization of this building? What do you like the most?
I think one of the things I really like is just the efficiency for everybody. And we asked recent graduates, right, what's most important to you? And they mentioned sports medicine, they mentioned nutrition, right? They mentioned efficiency, because there's the time demands that they have, right, between class, between practice, between competition, between studies, and this building is really designed to be efficient for everyone. And if we can do that, that will give us a competitive advantage.
Do you feel like this building would be less possible if not for the success of Fran Brown? Like, how much do you put on what he's done in the past year?
It helped us get us across the finish line, no question.
John, player development can mean a lot of things. What exactly do you sort of foresee Dwight doing to help?
Well, I think he's going to help us with recruiting. He's going to help us with with our current team. Particularly, there's nobody who can teach defensive line play and defensive end play better than Dwight Freeney, right? So I think there's a number of areas that it can be impactful. He wants to help us from a donation perspective to raise money. So we're going to leverage his celebrity in that regard as well. So it'll be multifaceted, Chris.
You expect him to be up here, around here enough to help with sort of coaching in a way?
I think it'll be between he and Coach Fran. So Coach Fran will determine. It's not like he's going to be up here every week, et cetera, that type of thing. So we're going to be more strategic in that regard.
You mentioned that Coach Brown wanted to honor previous coaches. Can you expand on how exactly he's doing that here in the facility? How important that is?
Well, outside his office, the mural, and it's my personal favorite is Coach Ben and Coach Mack and Coach P, and those are our three most successful coaches. And to me, and it was Coach Fran's idea. It's the one thing that he said. He said, I don't want to walk in the building until it's done. And I was kidding him the past 6 months. You got to go. No, I'm not going. But it's the one thing that he wanted. And to me, it underscores the appreciation that he has for the history of this program and the respect that he has for Coach Ben, for Coach Mack, and Coach P.
How much input did Fran and also former players and coaches and players now get to have into kind of some of the amenities here and what was really put into the building?
It was more current players in terms of what was most important and most impactful to them, so that was really helpful. And then we met with every department head, in football in terms of, hey, how can we design this to make it best in class for you? Again, efficiency is critically important. I mean, when you're here every day, every minute counts, every hour counts. So where we can be efficient, that will make us more competitive. There's no question.
How important was it for Fran to set that winning standard in his first year, as head coach?
Well, I think it's great because it put us on the map nationally. Number one, it's elevated our recruiting profile nationally. We're playing Tennessee and Atlanta, so I think this shows that Syracuse can be a program that can compete at the highest levels of the ACC. So it made a statement.
If you were a Syracuse football player right now, what would be your favorite part of this facility?
The locker room's pretty cool.
Take two more for John, and we'll take a tour after that.
I know it's early to talk about this after 1 year, but have you talked contract extension with Fran at all?
I'm focused on today. I'm focused on next week. Like Coach Fran, the next 168 hours, I'm focused on the next 168 hours.
I've heard a lot of nice things about him today, so I figured I'd ask.
Last one if anybody's got it.
What is the future facility line for SU?
Well, part of the master plan of the Lally complex is to do things in phases, right? So this completes phase 1B. So the next step that we want to do is we really want to address some of the Olympic sport facilities, particularly their locker rooms in some of those sports. That's really the next design.
John, France put out a very ambitious target in terms of fundraising, 6 to 8 million over the rev share. Do you feel like that's doable from what you've seen from the local community?
It has to be. I know if we're competitive, we will get really good players and we'll retain our best players. And I think that applies to football. I think it applies to men's basketball and women's basketball as well. If you're not competitive in the NIL space, that's the game right now. That's the game. So you got to embrace that. So one of the things I've said is it's not individual donor support only, Chris, but we really need more corporate support from Central New York and the upstate New York area. Just not Central New York. Central New York obviously is our primary target, but Rochester, Albany, Buffalo, Binghamton, Watertown. We need that corporate support because we know the impact that we have on the economy in this area.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.